talked about saying, my life is so wonderful. So let's breathe in and say, life is so wonderful. Life is so wonderful. Sometimes it's not a yell. Sometimes it's just a breathe in. Let's do that again. Life is so wonderful. So now we get to talk a little bit about the part that sometimes jumps in our mind. I know it does for me the first time somebody said, "Isn't life wonderful?" Where my little habitual mind went. Who here worries? I could say, oh, I never worry, but there's a line right here that calls the lie on that one. So let me ask you this, those of us in the worry tribe. Have you noticed that it helps the situation to worry about it? Yeah. No. Yeah, Rebecca knows. No. Have you noticed that when you worry about something, as you worry about it, solutions pop up? No. Have you noticed that when you worry, what instead tends to happen is that your thoughts start in this very sort of brilliant way to manufacture more and deeper and bigger worries? Or they go down on this wonderful road of like, oh, well, there could be this and there could be this. Anybody have that experience? That the worries start breeding like little rabbits? It's spring. They breed like little rabbits. And as a good friend and colleague of mine said, it's like you're cycling the drain. You're circling the drain. That worry thoughts. And that's because any thought that has a lot of energy on it spawns. Any thought that has a lot of energy on it. And often, for those of us who do the worry game, those worry thoughts have energy on them. Because we don't just, say, oh, gee, I'm worried about this. No, worry has kind of an emotion on it. And those emotional thoughts start breeding other thoughts and then start breeding this atmosphere that, as we've been learning from physics, create this kind of force field of energy around us that is that worry energy. And like any field we create with our thoughts, it acts like a magnet. Not only does it act like a magnet to other worry thoughts, it starts acting like a magnet to the very experiences that we're worried are going to happen. This isn't new. We didn't invent this in the 20th century. That's what the story of Job in the Hebrew Scriptures is about. The thing that I have feared has come upon me. Because he kept thinking about it and 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 thinking about it. So, fear and worry kind of creates a world of its own. Or as Emma Curtis Hopkins, who I've been quoting the last couple of weeks because she's so good with this stuff. She lived in the latter part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century. She's called the Nike woman of New Thought. She says that the world persists in exhibiting to us what we persist in affirming. And just because we say we're affirming doesn't always mean we're affirming nice, wonderful things. Because our worries and our fears are essentially affirmations of not great things. So the world persists in exhibiting to us that which we persist in affirming. This is what we know. This is what we've been talking about. But it's like every week we kind of need to really remember this. And especially in this time when a whole bunch of Christians the world over are fasting from... I don't know, what do they fast from? I actually have been fasting from watching The Housewives of Beverly Hills. And all housewife shows. Yeah, Steve, my husband is very happy about that. He says, why do you watch this stuff? They're yelling at each other all the time. So I actually have been fasting from something that I don't think is sinful, but I don't think it fills my mind with good and loving things. So when people around the Christian world are fasting in this period of time before Lent, I love to use that consciousness of releasing what doesn't work from our lives by releasing thoughts and behaviors that don't work. And since our thoughts tend to lead to behaviors, we've been looking at things like fasting from complaining, from criticism, from judgment, and today it's fasting or letting go of fear and worry. We've already got a consciousness of we can let go with the rest of the world, so it supports us. Just like the geese, their wings support each other, the updraft from their wings, that might not be the technical term, but the updraft from their wings support the other geese in formation. That other people up to the same thing, their consciousness supports us. So today we're looking at fear. So what is fear? What is worry? Well, Emma says, she talks about sin this way, but I think it also goes to fear and worry, that they're really belief in mistaken ideas. A mistaken idea that there are lots of problems around that are going to overtake us. Ernest Holmes says it more clearly that fear is simply misplaced faith. So when we say, I don't have any faith, yeah, you do. You just have faith in things that do not serve you, do not get you where you want to go. And there's a great idea that maybe some of you've read. I have no idea who came up with this, but there's all kinds of cool acronyms for fear. And the one that I particularly like for today is the one that is false evidence appearing real. Some of you heard that one? False evidence appearing real. That we make our problems very, very real, and not only that, is we decide that problem is the way it's always going to be. And so, of course, we start worrying about it. Of course we start worrying about it. And fear, that misplaced faith, tends to come up when we're in a new situation, when a challenge arises, or for some of us, it's just a habit that we go to. That's just where our mind goes. When it's idle, it starts going to worry. And so all these times, but I think especially when a big challenge comes up, is what we could call it an opportunity, which sometimes makes me want to slap somebody. But it truly is an opportunity that we could call, and that Emma called, the valley of decision. Because what comes up when a situation arises that we decide is a problem, that frightens us, that worries us, that's new, whatever it is for you that comes up, that puts you into that fear and worry, that this is actually a choice point. It is a choice point for our lives, but to start with, it's a choice point for our thoughts. Because we decide whether we are going to look down at the problem, at the challenge, at the new situation. If we're going to look down it and invest in it and worry about it and massage it and be so captured by it that we're stuck, or we can look up. And I don't mean the actual looking up, although I think that helps us, and any of those of you who know neuro-linguistic programming, it probably helps you look to the left or your right. I never remember that stuff. But anyway, we look up. We look away from the problem. We look up to know a higher truth. Emma might say, we look up to the truth, but let's talk about what that means so it's not just science of mind jargon. And that it's not something science of mind made up. That for thousands of years, it has been known the power of where we place our attention. It starts with David. King David, who wrote the Psalms, he said, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills from whence cometh my help. Well, you know he wasn't waiting for the cavalry. You know, they didn't have cavalries quite like that in those days. What that meant, I will lift mine eyes up from the problem to the infinite, to God. He called it God. He called it Jehovah. He called it Lord. But whatever you call is that highest, that infinite, that uniforce, that life force itself, that's where we lift our eyes up. King David wrote that a long 4,000, where's Skylar? Skylar, how long ago? Isaiah, the great Hebrew prophet, also writing a long time ago. I was thinking it was Jesus, and then I found out it was Isaiah. So he said, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Meaning, if your mind is stayed on God, you will be kept in peace. You will be moved through the storm. This is not a new idea. This is an old idea. Here's what Ernest Holmes, our founder of our Science of Mind teaching, said. He said, by prayer, and the kind of prayer we do, yes, putting our attention on the infinite, we gradually loose false thought into its native nothingness. I love that. By prayer, we gradually loose false thought into its native nothingness. That fear, that false evidence, that seems real, that this thing is going to take us over. By prayer, doesn't it feel like it gets wound around us sometimes, that fear, that worry? By putting our mind, our attention on the infinite, on that which is greater, we can start loosening the stranglehold of that doubt, that fear, that worry, and send it back to the nothingness. And from that space of being in perfect peace, of having our minds, our eyes, our attention, our consciousness raised to that something greater in us, that is that life force, that is all intelligence, that is the one mind itself, that's where the solution can come. You know, it's the Einstein thing that all of us misquote one way or the other. The same consciousness that caused the problem is not the one that can find the solution. We have to raise ourselves up. We have to raise ourselves up. In the modern era, and I don't know if this comes out of the evangelical churches or not, but I love this. It's the same thing. Don't tell God how big your problem is. Tell your problem how big your God is. That's what Emma says. Tell the truth about it. Tell this problem, whether it's a health problem, a relationship problem, a work problem. You think you've got the best of me? No, I have a God that works through me to do all that needs to be done in my life. My God is bigger than this little problem. And I will lift mine eyes up. I will open my consciousness up to receive that knowing, that inspiration, that peace, that intelligence, that solution. Not when we get down on our knees. Get down on different. Sometimes we get knocked to our knees, but not when we get down on our knees to the problem. Emma said it this way. one idea of God held in mind is a deathless seed. Those ideas of spirit, of the infinite, of truth, held in mind are a seed that cannot be destroyed. Destroyed. And like a seed, what will any seed eventually do if it is watered and fed? Grow. So our thoughts of God, our thoughts of the infinite, our thoughts of the one life, one love running through everything, our thoughts of divine right action, our thoughts of wholeness, sprout and become themselves the magnetizers, the field that attracts our life experiences. And those seeds of God, those high thoughts. Another metaphor was that the angels are high thoughts. In the Hebrew scriptures, when it talks about angels, it's talking about those higher thoughts of the truth that transcends this thing called three-dimensional reality. That those high truth thoughts will reproduce and then draw to them experiences that match them. Wow. We could have, I was just thinking of the match game. Remember that old game, the match game? Wouldn't that be cool if they do the match game? We could do a little workshop, say, what are you matching right now? What is life going to match to you right now? So where are your thoughts about whatever seems to be the biggest challenge in your life? Are your thoughts on how big that is, or how big and magnificent the infinite is that somehow is going to lift you out of that challenge? That's the question. Because God, those high thoughts, that's where our answers are, that's where our solution is, and that's why traditionally we might say that's where our salvation is. Our salvation is always in the higher thought. That is God. So, how do we practice this? How do we practice this? First of all, it becomes that catching the worry thought. And thank you for being here for me to do this talk, but because, boy, have I noticed where my mind goes lately just because I've been talking about it and planning to talk. That when that first worried thought comes, you don't have to be morbid or superstitious about it, but you grab it and begin to tell the truth, as Emma would say. And what that means is you have a thought like, oh, gee, I don't know how this is going to work out. Then you stop and say, there is one life, one mind, one power for good that is operating through my life now. Or you have a friend who is sick and you're worried about that. You say, I know that there was one life, one mind, one presence, and it is right where my friend is, as perfect wholeness, as perfect peace. As many of us get concerned about our finances, as we find that financial worry start to take ourselves over, we go, I know that in God there is perfect abundance, and I declare and know now that perfect abundance is in my life, operating through my life now, bringing me to pathways of prosperity. Now, saying that once is not necessarily going to flip everything. It is creating the practice of catching that worry thought, catching that fear thought, and transferring my attention. Don't look down, look up. Now, there's some Italian sages that have come to this country, and they have a great phrase. I don't know if they employ it during times of worry, but I think it's useful. They say, forget about it. Forget about it. So take that. Just It comes in your mind. Sometimes it helps to be playful about this kind of stuff. You have that worry, fear come up, say, forget about it. I got a God on my side. Or you can say, it helps you to be Italian. Be Italian. Faith in good, faith in the infinite, faith that there is a love and a power operating through your life to bring you to your greater good, your greater joy. That faith can also be borrowed. It sounds weird, but faith can be borrowed. So when you find yourself not being able to put your faith in what you want to have in your life, that's when you see a practitioner. That's when you see a practitioner, or that's when, if you have a prayer partner, somebody you've been doing prayer stuff, somebody who doesn't buy into your sad story and your victim, somebody who always knows that there is a power working through you to take you to where you want to be in life, with your prayer partner. Borrow faith. So let them know what's going on for you and let them speak the words of truth for you until you can start building up your own faith. That's the most powerful thing that our practitioners do. Because if you've ever noticed, you can know something for a friend. You can know that they're great, they're fabulous, their lives are working, they're excellent when they don't know it themselves. And that's what we practitioners do from a base of knowing spiritual truth as the truth of you, no matter what else is going on. That's why we study, that's why we practice, that's why we dedicate our lives to spiritual practice, so we can be in that spiritual truth for you. And that's also why we license and get known as professional practitioners. So that we have taken on that vow, taken on these practices and dedication and commitments. And that's why practitioners ask for a fee, by the way. And we all have sliding scales, so don't let that be a deterrent. But I know for some of us, when we're new in this teaching, we hear that to see a practitioner, you pay a fee. You go, what's that? Because they've got a pipeline to God? No, but what we do have is a pipeline to truth, and we can be in truth for you and have that faith that you can borrow. So that's the second thing, borrow faith. And maybe you have other people in your life you can borrow faith from. That works. And the third thing that you can do is, I'm going to give you another practice, because we love these practices to do every day, these tools that we can use, and when they're physical, it helps us remember. So a very powerful tool from the She of the Praise and Raise is another, what we call posture prayer, that we use the body with. And some of you have learned this in classes or workshops with me. And it's called the releasing prayer. It's very simple and very powerful. And I'm going to teach you the prayer, and then we're going to work with it. Basically, you've got a fear or a worry, put a name on it. Because our fears or our worries are usually about a mistaken belief in something. So if we are worried about our finances, we could say the fear is poverty, really. I mean, you can have all these other fancy names for it, but there's a fear, a belief that there's a thing called poverty and that I could be in it. If we're experiencing illness and are worried about our health, then we have a belief in illness. If we have a relationship that's really contentious, we might have a belief in disharmony or a belief in chaos or in struggle. And many of us, the struggle is a great cover for many of us. If we think life is hard and no matter what we do, we just seem to have to, and we have a belief in struggle. So do you see how that works? You name kind of the mistaken idea that your worry or fear revolves around. You release it. You say, I released. We have this. Could we get this slide up, Steve? We say, I release, and we actually do our hands, practice the hands with me right now. I release my belief in struggle, disharmony, chaos, poverty, illness, whatever it is. It's better if you don't say I release my belief in fear, because it's good to like find it and name it. And then, because once we name it, just like in the very first part of the Hebrew Scriptures, when we name it, we can have dominion over it. As long as it's amorphous, we can't name it and call a lie to it. So I release my belief in specific fear. And then we say, then we think, okay, what is a truth about God that would lift me out of this? So if it's poverty, we might have the idea of God as abundance. When we're having that strain in relationship, it's God as love. If there's something that we feel like we can't figure out, we may want to know God as intelligence or clarity or truth. If we're having physical challenges, we may want to know God as wholeness, or we may want to know God as just life itself. With me? That making sense? And you can always ask me or practitioners after. So we release our belief in whatever it is, and then we say, I am grateful God is the, and then whatever that quality is, I'm going to say love, the love I am. And then we bring that right into the center of our being, which strangely enough is our heart. Say, I'm going to do poverty and abundance. So it would look like this. I release my belief in poverty. I am grateful God is the abundance I am. So do you want to do that with me? So I release my belief in poverty. I am grateful God is the abundance I am. You know, and you like, whoa, anchor that baby. So now I want you to just take a second, because I know you can all do it. And what is a big, if you have a big fear right now, what is it around? So close your eyes, because sometimes that helps. Is that fear a belief in poverty? Maybe it's a fear of rejection, or belief in struggle, or in chaos, or illness. So just pick one for now. And then think about what is a word of God, a quality of God that you most want to know right now. Maybe it kind of matches up as the opposite, maybe it doesn't. But I'll go through a couple of them and see which one just resonates with you right now. What is the truth of God wanting to be known here? Is it abundance? Is it love? Is it truth? Is it intelligence? Is it peace? Is it wholeness? Is it life? Is it freedom? And just allow yourself to pick one. And so now those of you who feel comfortable standing, stand with me. And those who would like to remain seated, seat. So you've got yours picked up. Here's the words here. And because these are usually big deals, we're going to do the completion of 7 times with the same one, whatever your one is. And don't worry, everybody else is going to be talking, so I don't think anybody's going to be listening to what you're releasing. Oh, you know, joy could be something else you want to affirm. Okay, so again, release. I am grateful God is. Okay. I release my belief in struggle. I am grateful God is the joy I am. I release my belief in struggle. I am grateful God is the joy I am. I release my belief in struggle. I am grateful God is the joy I am. I release